30th. I'd like to start the planning board meeting for this evening with a call to attendance in alphabetical order, please.
Clark Brewer here.
Amy Glassmeyer here.
Kevin Hine here.
Birgit Schmidt-Wiescher here.
And we're joined by Julia Gillis, Assistant Town Planner, and Carolyn Murray, Town Council. We have one item on the agenda this evening. And if you would like to assure, or just Julia, make a thumbs up or state in the affirmative, the panelists are here for that. And if you could introduce that item on the agenda. It's basically what would just be on our agenda that is prepared.
Kevin, I can read the notice of public hearing, and that would include, kind of.
Yep, that's
What?
fine.
Yeah,
Sounds
that's
good.
that's good, Birgit. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So notice of public hearing, Cohasset Planning Board, pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48, Chapter 30, Article 7, Section 7.4 of the Cohasset zoning bylaws. The planning board is holding a virtual public hearing on the Zoom platform. Webinar ID 831-4310-4053, passcode 916904. This Wednesday, August 20th, 2025 at 6:34 p.m. for a common driveway for property being shown on Cohasset Assessor's Map, E6 48047 and E6 48046 at 40 and 46 Pond Street, Cohasset, Massachusetts 02025. The application is for the construction of a common driveway to service two homes. The application is submitted by Curtis Webb, Weather Main Builders, 190 Old Derby Street, Hingham, Massachusetts 02043. If the public audience wants to follow along, you can obtain electronic versions of application material by visiting the Cohasset website under Active Planning Board Applications. And any person interested or wishing to be heard on the application on this Zoom call, please utilize Zoom's raise hand function and we will promote you to speak.
Thank you, Birgit. And I trust the applicants and the representative are here and have been promoted. As we customarily do, we provide an opportunity for the applicants, typically it's their representative, to introduce themselves, provide an opportunity for them to provide an overview of the salient, most important parts of their application, in this case for the common driveway, and run us through some details of that, and then we will provide an opportunity for town consultant on this matter, Patrick Brennan. He has provided peer review more than once here on this. We can ask him to bring us up to date on the particulars with regard to the application, and then we will have an opportunity for members of the planning board present to voice any questions, issues, or concerns, and then we'll do so with any public attendees that may be in attendance. After we've all done that, and if we feel there's a consensus, we'll close the public hearing, and the planning board would have an opportunity to vote on this matter. So if I didn't miss anything there, it looks like we have some attendees, if they could introduce themselves and their relation to their project for the applicant.
Good evening, everyone. Taylor Corsano with Homestead Consulting Engineers. Here with me tonight, we have Josh Green from Homestead, as well as Curtis Webb, the applicant from Weather Vane Builders. I will share my screen. So we're here tonight seeking a common driveway application for the properties located at 40 and 46 Pond Street. The site, the Pond Street is located, actually, can everybody see my screen before I keep continuing?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Pond Street is located on the north side of the property. The frontage along Pond Street is 40. Pond Street is located right here, and 46 is here. As you can see, the topography is quite steep from the western side of the site down to the eastern side, where you'll see a wetland located on the lower portion of the site. There is also an existing stone retaining wall along the frontage of 40 Pond Street, which continues on to 46 Pond Street, and an existing stone retaining wall located in kind of the center of 40 Pond Street. So we're here seeking the common driveway application. The applicant is proposing to build 2 single-family homes with a proposed 16-foot wide shared driveway. The reason we're proposing the common drive is to mitigate impacts within the wetland buffer. As you can see in the outer limits here, that's the 100-foot wetland buffer. By proposing a common drive, we're able to push the driveway pretty far out, actually completely out of the buffer, as well as minimize the impacts of the houses within the buffer. By doing this, we're also able to minimize the grading that would be needed, rather than installing 2 driveways that would pretty much run right next to each other in these steep grades as you kind of step down from the eastern side to the western side to the eastern side. We're able to eliminate a lot of grading. There's also an existing kind of natural swale that runs along the northeastern portion of the site that ultimately ends up at this wetland. By shifting the driveway and only having 1 driveway, we're able to not have any impacts to the existing kind of stormwater that exists there today, as well as being able to save this stone retaining wall and this stone retaining wall. We do have a proposed turnaround between the 2 homes that complies with the bylaw section. And associated with the common drive, we have 2 rain gardens that would handle the runoff from the proposed driveway, as well as 2 underground systems for each of the homes. We do have a proposed easement running along the stormwater. It's shown in orange here. It runs along the stormwater systems, as well as the retaining walls. I think that summarizes most of the common drive, as well as, so the main purpose of this is to minimize the impacts within the wetland buffer, as well as kind of minimizing the amount of impervious where these 2 lots are located. The entrances are located so close to each other. It would be a little silly to have 2 driveways running right next to each other. But I would welcome any feedback from the board.
Barring any quick questions from the board at this point, is the consultant for the town, I saw him earlier.
Yeah.
Hi, Patrick. If you could
Our
pick it
peer
up from
review.
here.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pat Brennan with PGB Engineering. As the chair mentioned, I've provided 2 peer review reports for the project. I'll just summarize what my comments were and how they've been addressed. My first comment was in relation to that turnaround that Taylor just pointed out. They didn't have the turnaround in the original plan, so they did add it to this plan. The one thing that I didn't note in my letter, but it is in the bylaw, is that it does say that the turnaround or backup area is to be satisfactory to the Department of Public Works. So the board should probably reach out to the DPW just to make sure that they're comfortable, even though it's a driveway, so the DPW will never have to plow it or anything, but that's one of the requirements in the bylaw. My second comment was in relation to the thickness of the gravel base. They corrected that. My third comment was in relation to the width of the common drive. The original one, it was 19 feet in some areas. They've widened that to the minimum of 20 feet. They've also, a couple of my other comments were in relation to the sewer. The shared sewer main was not within the easement. They've corrected that. They've also added the easement around the rain gardens and the outlets from the rain gardens, because those are all associated with the common driveway. So the easement is now encompassing all of those items. So that knocked off several of my comments. There's a couple of requirements in the bylaw where they need to submit the easement document to the board for approval. They also need to submit a covenant to the board for approval for the driveway. And in their responses, they said that, once the board's reviewed this, and this is understandable, once the board's reviewed it and the board's comfortable with the location of the easement and the driveway, then they would provide those documents. Really no point in preparing those until you have a final layout. So I see why they're doing that. They had, on the original plan, they had a single retaining wall on it's the bottom of the screen there, the western side of the property. And it was over 4 feet high. What they've done is they've broken that into basically 2 retaining walls, stepping them so that you don't have a wall that's greater than 4 feet in height. They are incorporating the lower wall into the easement with the common driveway. They did not incorporate the wall that's up higher. Not sure if that really needs to be as part of it, but I think that lower one certainly does need to be, because it's there to keep the hillside from coming down into the common driveway. My next couple of comments were in relation to the drainage and the HydroCAD model and how they did that. They've corrected those items by including the grates in the rain gardens as overflow grates. They've included those in their analysis. They added the depths of the layers in the rain garden. There's a planting soil layer and there's a gravel layer underneath the planting soil. They've added the depths of those to their details. I did ask them to label the inspection ports on those subsurface systems that they have for roof runoff from the dwellings. It's really not part of the common drive, but we just wanted to see those labeled. And then between the way that the stormwater runoff works is it's going to run off kind of sheet flow off the common driveway over a grassed area, which is it is a stormwater BMP. It's called a filter strip. So the water runs through that grassed area and then into the rain garden. My recommendation, and they did add notes to the plan, was that those grassed areas as well as the rain gardens be vegetated prior to paving the driveway, because once that driveway is paved, if you don't have those grass strips vegetated, you're never going to get grass to grow, because anytime it rains, it's just going to wash it out. So they did add notes to this plan, this sheet here actually, that state that the grass strips need to be vegetated prior to paving the common driveway. So they did do that. My next comment was about a drawdown time for one of the rain gardens. They corrected that, so that they did take care of that. I had another comment about the operation and maintenance plan, about jetting of those subsurface systems for cleaning, and vacuuming would be more appropriate, so they made that change. And they also had a CZM fact sheet referenced in their O&M that wasn't attached to the original O&M, but they did attach it with the revised stormwater report that they provided. So they have addressed my comments. Like I said, the only things that they still kind of owe the board from my perspective and my review is those documents for the easement and the covenant that would obviously be provided after the board is comfortable with the layout of the common driveway. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
No, thank you for your report.
Yes, thank you, Patrick. Want to start off with the board. Any feedback based on what we heard to either Patrick and or the applicants here. If want to start off alphabetically, if
Yeah,
that seems to serve us well.
yeah, so, this seems like a pretty straightforward project. You know, there's an easement width and a paving width and a turning around and a few other details. I did review the bylaw before our meeting, and this proposal seems to tick all the boxes. In fact, it's, what's presented is graphically clear, and, it seems like that a level of thinking and keeping the project simple has been used, and I think that's really important. And just think, a year ago you could have applied for just a 12-foot driveway without any um so much level of effort, but I can see that the level of effort has made a difference in making it much more successful and perhaps ultimately for the applicant a much more valuable project for whoever those future homeowners are. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Clark. Amy?
Yes, I'm sort of wondering whether or not, well, first off, I'd like to have some explanation about why exactly the houses are placed as they are, where they are, because of the fact that they're involved with the wetlands buffer. And I'm wondering why they have left this corner, which I guess is southeast of the first house, and why they didn't just basically think about using basically half of the land, which is not going to have a problem when it comes to dealing with the wetlands. And that's the thing. The second thing is that I'm not convinced that the side of the development is going to be stable over time, because it is quite steep, and it will be subject to significant amounts of rain over time, and that's, we all know, is going to increase over time. So why was it that this this particular design taken?
Sure. So can you just point out, so I just want to make sure I'm understanding you. Are you talking about this lower area being
No.
left?
The area closer to the street?
This area,
No, down
That's
right there.
somebody else's property.
correct. We don't own that. There's an existing house there today.
Okay.
So our properties, if you can kind of see it, so the 40 Pond Street is obviously this upper lot. 46 has 50 feet of frontage as you come in here, and it has a little funky waves in it. And then this is 46 area. So we don't own this property.
So even with that, and I appreciate that clarification, did you try, it seems like this has been the same strategy that came into the project, and I'm just wondering whether there was any consideration of a different location for at least one of the houses.
Yeah, so I mean, this is obviously the first time we've been involved with permitting. I'm not familiar with anything previous to this. But we selected these locations due to, so I'm trying to find the best sheet to show you. So if you can see in this purple line that comes through here, I can highlight it so you can see. So the reason we selected these locations is that these are the most efficient locations to minimize buffer impact, as well as, you know, environmental impacts. Like I stated, that natural swale that runs through there, those existing stone walls that are out front. And these are two separate lots. So highlighted in yellow is the building setbacks. So we are kind of maxing out the amount of upland that we have within the building setback. So as you can kind of see, because the lots are funky down here, this is really the only area that makes sense for development without disturbing the existing swale that's located here, this existing stone wall. You start to get into the 50-foot buffer, which is a no-touch in Cohasset. So we chose that location for 40 Pond Street to be the most, or the least amount of impact to the environmental issues on site. And then we did just revise this plan. We had gone to Concom previously, and we had gotten some comments from them. So we revised the plans to put a smaller footprint here and shift it as close as we could to the setback on this side, to minimize what the impact would be within the buffer area. So we pushed it as close as we could to this side.
I see, and you feel that the current strategy for stabilizing the bank is going to be sufficient?
Yeah, so the existing slopes there today are pretty steep, so we're trying to stay within that, as well as, planting. The stepped retaining walls kind of minimize the massive slope, so we're sloping down, we're stepping down, and sloping again. So we can do plantings. It'll be stabilized with loam and seed, probably some sort of netting too. We'll take, obviously, and what's the word I'm looking for? We don't want that to go anyways, because obviously the houses are located down to that. So the applicant obviously doesn't want something to happen. Obviously the abutters don't either. So we would minimize any sort of impact as best we can in that area.
All right, have you spoken with the residents around the
So we,
project?
yeah, so we have tried. The applicant has extended his to set a meeting with abutters. Based on Concom, they didn't feel comfortable meeting with the applicant, but he's more than happy to meet with abutters on site to, weed out some of their concerns. We did hear from them at the Concom hearing. That's about it. And they did submit a letter to Concom, which we have received.
All right, is that part of our documentation? Do we have that?
I am not sure.
It would normally come to us, wouldn't it?
Not if it was addressed to the Concom necessarily.
All right,
Would it still be, would it still be possible to briefly summarize it? I kind of feel like we should have a, kind of coherent picture.
Yeah, so the letter was a lot of the concerns, same as Amy had just stated, about runoff coming from, obviously the grades are high here, slope this way. A lot of concerns about the wildlife that exists within the buffer. So hence why we're trying to mitigate as much as we can within the buffer. So flooding was an issue, their concern. Obviously it's a wetland, so it does hold water, or water gets there today. And I'm sure there are butters on who could voice more if I didn't. That was a very high overview of concerns.
Thank you.
all right, I don't have any further comments right now.
So, do you have a one in your plan, accessible plan drawings here? Do you have topographic lines showed, a topography? Yeah, okay.
So this is our proposed grading.
How about existing? Is that on here as well?
Yep. So so this is the existing. It's on the other sheet, but it's a little hard to see.
Right.
So you're high up here, and then it slopes pretty steep in the area where we're trying to develop. Over here, it's kind of flat, obviously due to the retaining walls that exist today on site. It slopes from, I would say, a high of 60 by the road, it's 70 over here, and then you're sloping down to about 50. So there's a pretty steep grade change. So doing the common driveway kind of allows us to bring up one side with the houses, with the walkouts, and then, you know, fill a little bit or cut a little bit on the top side. So you're kind of leveling out the site as best you can.
It appears your driveway, like you said, follows some of the natural topography where it can and where your setbacks, you know, allow. Did you
Exactly.
consider anything more sinuous in the driveway? Is there any advantage to something that just instead of coming out and then bending at that angle and making a straight line down, perhaps something a little bit more sinuous in there that might even work with the existing topography, perhaps a little bit better than that?
Yeah, so we
yeah.
did originally have the road kind of coming out a little bit more this way. It was a little rounded, then kind of turned its way back. Concom didn't like the roadway in there, so we were trying to pull it out as best we can. So that's why it's straighter in here. And
So
then
perhaps something where it heads off of the road, it ties into there, you know, which
Like
would be
more-
the Pond Street. Yeah, and then it kind of makes a bend, and then it kind of makes another sinuous bend tucked in, maybe down a little further up, even further up. Now over here in this corner, I can see the property kind of comes down. It's yes, that area
oh,
there.
in here.
Yeah. So it's a sinuous. Maybe you have a sinuous curve coming out, and then you have one tucked in down here where you just had that corner, and then it does another one over there. So it's a little bit more sinuous, just coming down to where the area of the first home is there.
Hey,
Yeah,
hey, Kevin, I have one of those very sinuous, sort of a common driveway, thing, and everybody always cuts the corners.
Uh,
Where it's straight, they stay driving straight for some reason, and then, you know, I mean, I tried to plant grass and like, and it just gets, somebody drives over it. Sometimes trucks like drag their trailers.
well, you didn't plant
There's a
trees
good and a bad
on
side to
it.
everything. I mean, I think it's if the straight line is what Concom wanted, is it really an issue for the planning board?
Well,
I mean, the
you
aesthetics
know,
of,
it's not necessarily an issue, but if there's some
Okay.
suggestions here that could make this perhaps a better project for neighbors, for the people that are going to be owners of these homes and or the town, I'm all for it. So I'm just asking the applicant here whether a more sinuous driveway away from what Concom is saying. I'm not saying put anything in the buffer. I'm saying in that area that's carved out right there, could just do that. If you've got problems with people driving on grass, you probably put a shit a boulder there or a tree. Okay, that stops people from cutting on
that's a good
corners.
idea.
Okay,
but I
so
think
I'm
this
just
is
putting
a
that out there.
straightforward.
Clark, can I finish, please? I'm just putting that out there for an applicant to consider and provide some feedback on. Straight driveways are great.
But this is what
for
they're
sight lines,
proposing.
that's all.
This is what they're proposing. We don't want to continue this. This is very straightforward.
I understand it. I'm still have an applicant in front of me, Clark. So can I get through a few questions and some feedback on this? Is that okay?
I'm not interfering with your comments. I'm just adding to them.
And so I'd like to hear from the applicant whether that was considered or not in the area away from the buffer in that area down there, or not. I'm just looking for some feedback on the thought process with regard to this.
Yeah, so we chose this entrance, like I said, because it creates the least impact with the stone retaining wall. So we're kind of held at the 66 by the road. So as you try and pull it in more this way, it will likely create not high walls, but you'll likely need a little bit more of a boulder wall just to keep that elevation, either on this side or on this side. So it's kind of like a give and take. So we tried to split the difference as best we could to not have, say, an 8-foot wall on this side,
Yep.
or like a 4-foot wall on the other side. So this, in our opinion, was the least amount of impact with the least amount of walls,
Yeah,
which is still significant, but our goal was to try and not have too much impact, to keep kind of the natural grading mostly on this side, where that natural swale kind of exists today,
okay,
and then not
okay.
have too many walls on the other side.
Okay, thank you. With regard to the walls, I guess only one of them, not both of them, would be, would have easements. Is there a reason why one would not one would be included and one would not be included, and which one is included, as you've
So,
currently got it proposed?
so we included the bottom wall just because that was the one closest to the road where they'd be doing maintenance and everything. Um, we can easily add this upper wall into the easement. We have no opinions on whether it should or shouldn't be in there. It's no big deal if we want to add that into the easement.
And there's no wall on the down gradient side of the driveway. I
No.
don't see one here.
Nope. So that's why, again, to your point with the road too, where we have it, we're able to kind of keep like a flat area in
Yeah.
front of this house. These would be walkouts, so we're able to retain some of the grade as it slopes down towards the wetland, so to minimize the need for walls on that side.
Okay, okay, great. I understand that now. Thank you. And then
Mhm.
just one other thing that strikes me, you've got two rain gardens here.
Yes.
One of them has a more irregular shape, and I suspect that might just be tied to the topography over there. And that's the one like you're
So-
highlighting right there. And then the other one over in the area between the buildings that looks more oval and, you know, pool-like looking.
Mhm.
Is there a reason why that one is more more of an oval, you know, less kind of natural looking? Um,
So no, not really. We tried to, kind of not make this anything too crazy because it's in the front yard of that home.
yeah,
So it's kind of just how the grading worked out. There's not really a rhyme or reason to the shape of it.
okay. And then with regard to and just one final point here, and I'll let other members have any additional questions. What type of vegetation are we talking about that would go in those rain gardens? There's usually a particular type of vegetation that doesn't just go haywire and start clogging out the infiltration capacity of a rain garden. But sometimes there can be provisions for that vegetation to have more of a native type focus. And is there any provision for the latter?
So I believe we have specs, just the Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook gives you a list of allowed plantings in there. So that's what we have specced. They can pick a mix of those plants. And I think it'll be also, I'm sure Concom might have a preference over certain ones, since the rain gardens are in their buffer.
Right.
They haven't
So
stated that
you
yet.
did you get an approval from Concom, or that's in process?
That's in process. So we had
Okay.
one initial hearing with them. We did a site walk. And then we're supposed to be on tomorrow night, but we may have to continue. So
Okay.
we're in the process with them.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll just leave it at that. I appreciate the additional information with regard to perhaps a more sinuous driveway, and understand now better why it's more linear. One of your rain gardens just strikes me as just kind of artificial looking with its oval shape, and whether that
Okay.
could perhaps be more sinuous or
Sure.
natural looking might be beneficial, and or if the Massachusetts provisions for allowed vegetation, appropriate vegetation in rain gardens could have any type of native focus or primary. I think that would be beneficial for all involved. Thank you. I'll turn it over to any of my colleagues that still have questions with regard to this. Birgit?
Yeah, I had just with respect to the driveway, I appreciate that you added that. That was the first thing that I saw from the first plans. It still. Can you explain again what, Patrick, was that your comment, that we still need to kind of, get confirmation that it is the right width and size in general to allow for the appropriate turning?
No, they did provide in the revised plan set, they did provide a swept path analysis with the size vehicle that's specified in the bylaw, and it shows that it can make that turnaround and stay within the pavement limits. So it does comply with the bylaw in terms of pavement width and turning radii and so forth.
Okay, okay. It's just kind of like looking at it, the driveway leading up to the garage of the first house looks, you know, kind of broader than the drive and wider than the turnaround space there. So it was, I was just kind of curious.
Yeah, the requirement in the bylaw is that the turnaround be, I believe, 14 feet in width.
Hmm.
Theirs is actually 16 feet, so they meet that requirement, I believe.
Okay. All right, and it does need the length as well, you know, kind of the full length for the fire truck to,
Yes, it does.
That was, yeah, kind of like other subjects have been touched on as well already, but I have just a, you know, a favor to ask, so to say, you know, kind of reading the comments from our peer review. That was, you know, kind of great, and then the comments back to the comments. It's hard, at least for me, it was hard reading, you know, kind of just through the comments and the responses, and then understand without going through, you know, kind of the entirety. It was made references here to there. And it probably is for us to be, you know, kind of not spending 2 hours before the meeting to kind of weed through, you know, kind of, okay, where, yes, we addressed it there, and yes, we addressed it there, to just have a brief summary of what was, you know, kind of addressed in the response, so that, you know, kind of it's easier and quicker for us to understand.
Okay. Yep, I can do that.
Okay, thank you very much.
And Patrick, you can just make a note of that and do that on future peer reviews. But with regard to this peer review, I think I speak for the board here. If I'm not, I want to hear it. The peer review is sufficient, and everything that you had identified has been adequately met by the applicants at this point.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it for what we have on the board from members that are in attendance tonight. Amy, did you have something else?
Let me ask another question about the turnaround. Patrick, did I understand that you said 14 feet?
Actually, I just read it. It's 15 feet is the minimum width. They provided 16 feet in width.
Okay, so but it looks like, so if you were gonna draw a circle, what would be the radius?
The minimum radius, if it were to be, the bylaw requires a minimum radius of 50 feet.
50 feet?
Correct.
Oh, and that's what we have.
So with this type of a turnaround, the requirements, and I'll just read it right from the bylaw. If designed to accommodate a vehicle of 30 feet in length, 8 feet in width, and having an outside turning radius of 47 feet, the minimum width shall be 15 feet to a depth of 45 feet. So they've met the depth of 45 feet, and the radius, I believe their radius might be larger than 15 feet. But there's the swept path analysis with that design vehicle that the bylaw specifies. So it shows that the vehicle can maneuver and turn around in that turnaround.
Yeah, okay, thanks for that. I will say that in looking at this particular driveway, if there was an emergency and vehicles were trying to get out, the prospect of one overtaking the other could actually be a serious possibility, right? Because that house that's the furthest from the road could in fact end up running into the vehicle attempting to do any kind of rescue in the first building. So it's sort of like you can get halfway, but you know, if there's a fire in the first house, you may not have a lot of ability to get around it.
There's a big flat area, especially in the first house for vehicles to hop the curb, so to speak, for what's paved.
No further comments.
Do we have any members of the public, Julia, that you see that wish to be heard on this matter? And if so, they could indicate by raising their hand, and Julia, you would promote them, and they would introduce themselves by name and address.
Mary Jo Larson is being promoted.
Thank you, Julia. Mary Jo, if you can hear us and introduce yourself, please.
Sure, thank you. So my name is Mary Jo Larson. I live at 12 Virginia Lane, and I'm one of 25 neighboring abutters who signed a petition, a carefully prepared petition with 7 attachments to summarize our concerns about this particular plan. For this planning board meeting, I'd like to focus on the common driveway, and in particular, listening to the discussions, I'd like to just state in general, I see much more attention given to the kind of mitigating the impacts on the eastern wall, on the eastern side of the property versus the western side of the property. So if you would put up the map, I'll explain where my house is and my neighbors' homes are. So I'm on 12 Virginia Lane. It's situated on a sloping hillside directly across from the ravine. So during heavy rains, such as a storm that caused flooding and road closures in early July of this year, rivers of water, Patrick stated it clearly. He said water runoff will be sheet flow over the driveway. It flows. So the water goes flooding down our driveway, and it goes across the backyard and right into the ravine below. And that ravine is steep. In some areas, it's 35 degrees. So my concern is really the western side. I see tremendous effort going into the eastern side of the ravine. So for us, not just myself, but my neighbors, a major concern for our Virginia Lane properties and the properties that are below is that the retaining wall, which is there to protect the driveway, and Patrick did mention that. He said the wall is to keep the hillside from coming down into the driveway. The hillside is eroding all the time, okay? So for us, that retaining wall that will protect the driveway from stormwater runoff, it flows into the ravine from Virginia Lane. The risk during an intense storm, as the retaining wall blocks and redirects the stormwater runoff, that concentrated stream of water will destabilize and erode the western side of the ravine over time. This phenomena is commonly known and referred to as the piping effect. It could create significant stormwater damage affecting our properties, which abut the ravine from Virginia Lane. So this does relate directly to your common driveway. I have heard reference to multiple drainage systems in rain gardens, and I understand that. I also want to highlight the fact that these drainage systems that have been proposed to mitigate the impact of stormwater flowing into the ravine and onto the driveway and properties, these drainage systems are set in a wooden ravine. it has leaves and branches and everything. We're dealing with that all the time. And so these drainage systems clog up. They will require really vigilant maintenance to ensure their effectiveness. And in fact, our questions include who will be responsible and accountable for their upkeep or any damage to the abutting properties. So for us, I know the town is very proactively being preventive about problems. And that is why I appreciate this meeting, because you can predict with the increasing heavy rainfall, and there are all types of projections and trend lines about that we can find, and we included in our petition, that we will have increasing problems with erosion and the destabilization of the back of the ravine. So all attention has been on the eastern side. I'm drawing your attention to the western side. So given the natural function of this ravine as a stormwater drainage area, it's a ravine, and the watershed is really it's a watershed for the neighborhood. We really strongly urge that the planning board thoroughly address our concerns before proceeding with an approval. So thank you for listening to our concerns. And if anyone is interested in seeing our petition, I'm sure Charlotte would make that available, or you could certainly send me an email and I'll be happy to send it to you, because we put a lot of time and effort into that, and 25 neighbors signed that petition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary Jo. Is this the same petition that was put forth in front that was discussed earlier with regard to the issue in front of the planning board? Is this the letter that was mentioned earlier?
This petition was sent to Concom. At the time, actually, we were most concerned about, honestly, the side of the ravine, the natural resources, everything that exists in that ravine. I mean, it's a very active area for wildlife,
Sure.
etc.
So, this is a complex site, given just by the nature of the topography of the area, the wetland setback features. And what's in front of us as a planning board is the issue of a common driveway application. And the issues that you mentioned are extremely important, and they are issues, from what I heard, that are appropriately addressed at the Concom in the meetings that are held that's in front of them for these parcels and this property and the development as it's put forth for that. So do you have a plan to bring these to that board? And I heard the meeting is a plan
yes.
for tomorrow night, and it may even be continued beyond that.
I appreciate what you're saying. And yes, we have already sent the petition. We've already presented at Concom. The reason I think it's appropriate to bring this to your attention is that without that retaining wall, your common driveway is non-functional. So in my mind, how can you separate your retaining wall from the common driveway? Your driveway, I could quote Patrick. He said, the walls to keep the hillside from coming down into the driveway. So you can't approve the driveway if you remove the train. You've got to understand, it's a package. It isn't just that you're putting in a driveway. The retaining wall, it protects the driveway. Otherwise, this doesn't make any sense. But your retaining wall is a major risk to the property owners. So I think it's important for you to be sensitive to this issue from the point of view of, you can't have the driveway without the retaining wall, and the retaining wall is a risk. So
point well taken, Mary Jo. I'm seeing on this plan in front of us a retaining wall that extends along 70 to 80% of the driveway on the upslope side of it. If I'm missing something here, I'd like to have the applicant's representative show me something else. That's exactly right. Mary Jo, are you saying that that retaining wall is not going to be a part of this? Because I heard that retaining wall, the one that was just highlighted using the pointer right here,
yes,
would be part of the easement for that driveway and approval of this project.
Yeah, exactly. But here's my point. The retaining wall that protects the property that doesn't exist right now. You are approving a common driveway based on the protection that is provided by the retaining wall. However, At the same time, as you add the retaining wall, you are putting the properties on the western side of the ravine at risk. That's my point. So this isn't a straightforward decision. It is complicated. I understand that.
So
It's-
just to get me oriented, just make sure my orientation is correct.
Yes.
You're saying the western side would be in the area
There you go. It's
over there. Yep,
Yes,
okay, down there.
That's right.
And
That's
how
right.
would that retaining wall put the properties over there, which are on another side of this topographic mound, high point, at risk?
Because
just clarify that?
what is not, you see, this design really focuses more on the protection of the eastern side, but what you cannot see from this mapping is on the western side, there is a steep ravine. And by the way, erosion is a tremendous issue. We are constantly planting and trying to protect our properties from that. That's the edge of the
Okay.
ravine. It's a
I
true
think I got a
ravine.
better picture now. So there's
Okay.
something off of this schematic shown right here. You're describing as a ravine.
Yes,
And not being familiar with those private properties
Yes.
over there, but it sounds like you and your neighbors are. It sounds like that ravine functions as an intermittent stream perhaps during periods of high flow.
yeah,
That stream manifests itself, provides drainage from the area, and then it
Yes.
disappears in between storm events.
oh,
Okay.
the water flows down that
Sure.
side of the ravine. Both,
If
okay,
I
that's
could.
it.
It's
Yeah.
just so it's not a ravine. I was like, we're using that word a little loosely. It's a hillside, which is very steep. So yes, they are on the high side. So today, stormwater obviously goes from high to low. So as part of the stormwater management, we have to mitigate peak flows as they are in existing and proposed, which is the stormwater that Pat Brennan had reviewed. So
And
we had
that's in all
taken,
directions, right, Taylor?
correct.
Yeah,
Yep,
okay,
exactly.
that's my understanding. Okay. All right, thank you, Mary Jo.
You're welcome.
I appreciate your time and your time with the neighbors gathering these concerns, and I would absolutely encourage you to bring them and attend, as I'm fairly certain you will be doing the Concom in future meetings, whether they're tomorrow or carrying forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Jo. Julia, anyone else that we can promote and provide an opportunity while the public comment period is still open on this issue?
Not seeing any additional hands at this time from the attendees list.
Okay. So we'll just pause for a moment here to make sure that is the case or remains the case. But if anyone is interested, we're providing an opportunity to do so. Raise your hand. You'll be promoted, and then we would just ask that you introduce yourself by name and address.
Kevin, Amy's got her hand up.
All right, thank you, Clark.
Thank you. In a case where there is a deluge and the bank begins to creep downward and covers the driveway, who will be responsible from an insurance perspective for the maintenance and recovery of the site?
As a part of the common driveway application, there needs to be a homeowners association, or some type of entity that is responsible for the maintenance of the stormwater systems, the common drive, and would be shared between the two homeowners.
All right, and do we have any understanding of ancillary circumstances that would lead the town to be also liable, given that we are approving a embankment that has got record deterioration over time? What is the liability of the town?
All right, Amy, before Taylor takes that, Patrick, did you have a point of clarification on that? I saw perhaps you may have.
I did. So to kind of answer Amy's question, that's the covenant that they need to provide. And right from the bylaw, the covenants establishing legal and financial responsibilities for continuing maintenance, snow removal, and repair of the common driveway, including any associated drainage facilities, providing specific standards for maintenance and repair, and providing procedure for resolving disputes. So that covenant should also include the maintenance and repair of the retaining walls and that slope near the, adjacent to the driveway.
So I want to ask another question associated with that. In the instance where the bank might begin to descend and actually go into the property of the residents, of the new residents, are they themselves covered individually and independently, or only by the terms of the covenant?
You're asking Amy about other property owners, not the two that would share
I'm
this driveway?
asking actually about the actual circumstance if there was to be a sloughing off significant enough that it not only has a consequence for the common driveway, but it actually has an impact on the two residences. Would the residents have a separate legal structure to protect themselves in addition to managing and recovery of anything that would happen for the uphill side properties? Right, because it's the dirt coming down onto the road that's going to be the problem. Then the question becomes, how does the liability actually get distributed?
I'm not sure that's within the purview of our common driveway approval process, Amy. I certainly am not one to provide an answer on this. If anyone else perhaps has additional information on that, they can put it forth here, but I'm not sure that beyond what you said, dirt coming across from high points and sloughing onto the driveway, I heard that might be a part of the, Patrick, you didn't use the word easement, but covenant and maintenance of that driveway and keeping it free of detritus and or sloughing materials from the high points on the high side of that road.
Correct. And because this issue is being brought up, we had questioned earlier about whether the upper retaining wall should be within the easement. And given these issues that have been brought up, I would recommend that the upper retaining wall is within the easement.
Could you say that a little bit louder, Patrick? You kind of trailed off.
I'm sorry, I would recommend that the upper retaining wall also be included within the easement so that it's in that same easement with the common driveway. So it's all together.
All right, thank you.
Taylor, your thoughts, your client's thoughts with regard to that recommendation?
I think Curtis is on, but I don't think we have an issue with that.
Okay, all right.
Would that by any means address anything of what Mary Jo just brought forward? Would that help in any way control the water flow so that it would not have any impact on their properties?
The water flow that she's talking about, their properties are well upgrading of this. So the water flow, I think her concern was that this whole area would wash out and start to erode back toward their properties, which is unlikely. And the retaining walls would need to be designed by an engineer. So, those would be engineered retaining walls. So they, the stability of those walls should not be in question once they're designed and approved. But currently the water runs down there. As Taylor showed you on the existing conditions plan, it's a steep slope now. With the retaining walls and the flattening of the yards for the houses, that's going to slow the water once it comes down over those retaining walls. Most of it's going to hit that common driveway, run down along the Cape Cod berm, and then across that grass filter strip that I mentioned previously into the rain gardens. But for the most part, right now, it just goes uncontrolled right down through that whole area on that steep slope. This is actually going to break that flow a little bit and put it into these two rain gardens to slow it down even further. So the concern about that slope and the retaining walls being unstable, I if it's designed and constructed correctly, there should not be an issue there. You know, if it's eroding today, by making these improvements, it should help the situation.
Right. Okay, I appreciate that additional information, Patrick. Barring any additional interest in the public in commenting on this, I entertain a motion to close a public comment period for this common driveway application for 40 and 46 Pond Street.
So moved.
There is actually a public comment from Richardson. He'll be promoted to panelist.
Okay, we'll entertain that. Mr. Richardson, if you can introduce yourself and let us know your name and locus, please. And you may be on mute. We do not hear you.
Thank you very much for that. Good evening, members of the committee. My name is Rex Richardson. I live at 60 Pond Street. 60 Pond Street is actually the neighboring property to Mary Jo Larson, just to give you context, although her address is Virginia Lane and ours is Pond Street. I just wanted to sort of make sure that you had the appropriate context for the amount of water that Mary Jo was referencing and that was referenced in our petition as well. So in times of storm, there is, I think now, inadequate drainage from the top of Pond Street near Bancroft, let's say, coming down. And that's particularly so to the south of Pond Street. So as you enter Virginia Lane or Holly Lane, any of those lanes off, there is no drainage. There's no drainage on Virginia Lane whatsoever. So what we experience in these times is a tremendous amount of runoff that comes from the top of Pond Street and across all our properties. I don't say that for any other reason except to provide you with the appropriate context of just how much water is actually coming down in times of medium rain. And I want to make sure that that volume is being appropriately accommodated for. So with respect to your time, and I know you have other matters to move on to, I'm just going to keep my comment brief, but wanted to provide that context.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. With regard to the volumes of water and the use of modeling as a part of this applicant's package, Patrick, I know that was a part of your review of the materials submitted as well. Are they current standards, and was there any issue with regard to them? I'm not sure, and if you could just verify that, but my understanding was there was not, and it was using current engineered standards. Perhaps it was maybe even using some standards that exceeded the current ones, but I'll let you speak to that and or the applicant's representative on this.
Yes, so the analysis was mainly focused on these properties because the standard is that you cannot increase the runoff from the particular property that you're developing. So from what I'm hearing from the two butters is that there's a significant amount of runoff that runs onto this property from uphill. So that will continue to run onto this property. I think it's good for Taylor to understand this, because when they go to actually do the design on those retaining walls, they should make provisions for that additional runoff. In the backflow of those walls, what you typically do is you put drainage behind those walls with crushed stone so that any runoff that's approaching those walls kind of gets taken away. And then they could pipe that, to the rain gardens if need be. But I think, what they've designed here for their lots will take care of the runoff that's generated from their lots. It's not going to, it will slow down the runoff that's coming from above, but it's not going to decrease the runoff that's coming from above. You really can't do anything off-site to mitigate that. Like I said, I think the one thing that Taylor and her team can look at is crushed stone behind those walls to accommodate that additional runoff, so it doesn't cause a problem with water coming down, or even some diversion swales to direct that runoff around their walls and around the homes, so that it gets to the wetland, but you divert it around the developed portion of the lot.
Recharge from high points throughout town, and we think of high points as, those rocky knolls that we have good views of the ocean from, or of Little Harbor from, or something. It includes even swales, or what it is, in between parcels tucked in the woods, like we have, it sounds like, in this area, in this vicinity of Pond Street, and where the abutters have their residences. And with our sudden and more frequent storm events, we're all coming to terms with what that really means. And so, Mr. Richardson, I want you and your neighbors to understand that, what's occurring here, and with approval or disapproval of a common driveway application, under no circumstances should this change what you are experiencing, as unfortunate as it may be during these storm events that are occurring here. And what is being designed for here, and what Patrick Brennan just talked about with the review of the design submitted here, should not allow for that. It should not create any issues that would further change the conditions on you and other butters areas in this neighborhood. So, did you have any other questions or concerns?
No, I appreciate that context, and I do, and I think, Patrick's point was the point that I was trying to make as well, which is I want to make sure that people are aware, because when my family and I moved here in 2007, I was surprised that there was no drainage along Virginia Lane, and that the only drainage is a catch basin at the corner of Pond Street and Virginia Lane. So it was surprising to me. And then living here since, to see water, stream down across lawns and over Virginia Lane, across our lawn, so on, and all collect down on those lots. I just wanted to make sure that folks understood the sheer volume. It's not just, there might be runoff from Virginia Lane, or there might be runoff from, Richardson's Hill, or from the Larson's driveway, or whatever. It's this runoff is coming from Bancroft all the way down. Yeah. And so I just wanted to make sure that context was represented.
No, I appreciate you taking the time to enlighten the board and make your comments public. And as I mentioned to Mary Jo, I would encourage you to bring those in front of the Concom in the meetings planned for this project as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, without further ado, is there anyone else, Julia? If not, Amy, I see your hand.
Yep, sorry about that, but we do have a stormwater report, and I would like to have it narrated. We've got 4 images that indicate what happens, and so I would like to know from a professional engineer's perspective what these pictures are telling me, and why there's different colors like blue and orange, and is this trying to simulate an experience that could happen, or is this a regular circumstance? And if it's a regular circumstance, is it necessary to be mitigated now versus waiting for something to happen? Or is this something that is not an issue?
And to clarify, what is it that you're referring to?
There's a stormwater report that has certainly 15 pages at least in it. And in it, it's got 3 images. One is the site itself. The second has image material, blue and orange, and I presume blue is water. And then it is another narrative of.
So I think what you're talking about is just the exhibits that are required to be prepared. So one indicates a FEMA area. One indicates where if there's any endangered species on site, which I believe is the yellow you're seeing. Orange, I believe, is the soils. There's a locus that shows the areas. There's a wetlands layer that shows the wetlands. So those are just exhibits that are required in a stormwater report that just show the different GIS overlays on the property.
All right, well, thank you for that. I would like to request that when we have visual images in adjacent reports that are a part of a project, that they be described to us as members of the board, because we otherwise have no idea what is being provided for us, and therefore we can't really comment on it.
Any other questions from members of the board or members of the public? Okay, I'm going to entertain, there's already been a motion out there to close the public comment and discussion on this issue with regard to 40 and 46 Pond Street. Do I hear a second? We can, you know, we can wait and hear more crickets on this. I can second it. I'll second the closure of the public comment period as put forth in the motion by Mr. Brewer.
The vote would, I'd start Clark Brewer, aye.
Yep. Alphabetical roll call, please.
Amy Glassmeyer abstain.
Kevin, is this just for saying
This is for closure of the public comment period with regard to the 4046 Pond Street common driveway application. My vote is yay to close the public comment period.
Yes, and
Birgit?
Birgit Schmidt-Becher, aye as well.
Okay. So the public comment period is now closed with regard to the common driveway application in front of us. Any motion with regard to this issue?
I'll make a motion to approve the common driveway for 2 houses as designed with the caveat that they get the DPW director to review the hammerhead and follow up with town council and planning board staff on the covenants and easement configuration as discussed.
And Clark, for clarification, would that be easement of 2 retaining walls?
Including the what was suggested as including both retaining walls in the easement area.
Okay,
That exceeds the minimum 20 feet, but that shouldn't be an issue.
understood. Second, anyone second?
Mm.
Birgit, is there some issue with that you need?
Yeah, I just
clarification on?
wanted, is there another like caveat that we could add, you know, because we heard the comments from Mary Jo and Mr. Richardson, you know, and I think we need to take that very seriously. And I would like to, you know, kind of add something, you know, kind of to
Excuse me, Birgit, we do have the Conservation Commission that adeptly handles conservation and stormwater issues related to this particular property or these properties.
And I would just caution that what's in front of the planning board is this common driveway application, and we're bound by our requirements as permitted, you know, as in the existing regulations for that were updated earlier this year for our decision-making process on this. But those points made by the abutters should be, and it sounds like they will be carried forward to the Conservation Commission and meeting tomorrow night and or successive meetings on this issue, on those very points.
I totally agree with, you know, kind of, we are talking about the sidewalk here, the common driveway here, but, you know, as was pointed out as well, the retaining walls are part of it. And we, you know, kind of, this is a construction issue, versus this construction then, you know, kind of causes water flow changes and then potential damages. So it's kind of like a very gray area. Who's going to say what here now? Are we?
Well,
I
let me
would-
point out that the construction of those retaining walls must be made to accepted design requirements. And it can exceed those design requirements. And that's what Patrick had put forth in his additional points he just made just recently, to which the applicant heard that these retaining walls may need to be over-designed given the specific circumstances of this property. You know, it's going to fall on them. You know, if there's design inadequacies of these, and these homes are owned by people that find that out in an unfortunate and untimely way, which often happens during and after storms, that's going to fall on someone's sword here. Okay, and it's going to probably fall on the designers and or the constructors or everyone that touched this project. Okay, that's not necessarily something that we're not designing it here. We're not designers. We're either approving this common driveway application or we're not. And if there's something with regard to what we have jurisdictional authority over in that approval or not of this, we can add it as a part of our conditions. And I think the conditions put forth here as articulated by Clark are pretty straightforward. They don't exceed our authority. And I think the issues with regard to those stormwater issues, drainage issues, setback issues, infiltration, wetland, all the above is in the jurisdictional area of the Conservation Commission, which has not opined on this or approved this yet. And that's for the applicant to carry forth over to them. What's in front of us now is this common driveway application.
Clark, can I ask you to repeat what you
Yeah, the motion was for a two-house common driveway to approve the two-house common driveway as designed, with the caveat that the hammerhead be reviewed by the DPW and that the covenants that protect both of these homeowners and spell out who's responsible for what be submitted to staff and council, and that the easement incorporate both retaining walls and expanded from the minimum 20 feet.
Okay.
Do I hear a second?
Second?
Okay, we'll proceed to a roll call vote of the Cohasset Planning Board with regard to the issue of 4046 Pond Street common driveway application as articulated by Member Brewer with the conditions provided by him.
Clark Brewer, aye.
Amy Glassmeyer, abstain.
You realize we need a 4-person approval for this to pass because it's a special permit.
I do understand that, and
Okay.
unfortunately, as the meeting went on, more information continued to
It
come
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just that's your vote.
Kevin Heine, aye.
Birgit Schmidt-Besche, aye.
So we have 3 ayes and 1 abstain. And Carolyn, if you don't mind telling us where that leaves us.
That fails to get the supermajority vote that it needs for a special permit.
Okay, so
Thank
does this matter
you.
continue
Favor.
with modifications or I'm trying to understand what the where that leaves the applicants.
Well, if you since you just voted, that kind of tends to be the end of this road.
They can
unless the-
reapply, right?
Well, there's always reapplication with a modified or some modification made to the plan, because there is the 2-year prohibition against a repetitive petition coming back, so it would have to be somehow materially different.
They could also appeal the land court, right?
They can appeal, yes.
Sorry,
Mhm.
so the public hearing already closed. Can I speak at all or?
Taylor, we've,
Just
had,
wanted to
yeah,
ask,
we
sorry.
had provided,
over.
if it's a point of a clarification of where things landed right here, but we've already discussed the project and we already closed the comment period on it now.
Yeah, okay.
It's the vote has been tallied, and Attorney Murray has provided the avenues of recourse that I would recommend the applicant consult with you and your team to determine the next course of application with regard to this.
And then I don't know if you can say, but sorry, what was it? Is there a reason why it was denied? Can we get that information, or is that not possible?
Well, as you saw it right in front of you here, we have 4 board members in attendance out of a body of 5, and we
Yep.
need affirmative votes from all 4 members for this issue to have been approved tonight under this under the context of the numbers we have attending right now.
Understood. I was just wondering if
I
we met
suggest
all
that
of.
you review the Zoom meeting. It's
Okay.
on the Town of Cohasset YouTube. So that you understand exactly what was said and why.
Yeah, I just wanted clarification because I thought we had explained our side, and it just seemed like there were still questions, so weren't answered clearly. So thank you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Hold off, we have some minutes, but we'll thank you for
Thank
your
you very
time.
much.
Okay. Clark, before we get there, we have some minutes that were going to be included in this meeting, and Julia, actually, Julia, you didn't put those forth. Those were put forth by your colleague, and we were going to approve or disapprove those minutes. They were for 2 different dates.
Correct. Let me just pull up the email. So there were minutes from July 23rd, as well as August 6th.
Okay, and they were revised. I had provided some additional requests for information with regard to some of the minutes, and that was done. If people have had an opportunity to review the minutes, or they would haven't, but I'd still like to put it in front of the board to approve both the July minutes that were shared and the August minutes. Roll call vote to do so would be appreciated. Alphabetical order.
Motion to approve the minutes. So
Yes.
noted.
Second,
Roll call vote to
Clark
approve.
Brewer, aye.
Amy Glassmeyer, aye.
Kevin Heine, aye.
Birgit Schmidt-Besch, aye.
Okay, approval of both minutes, unanimous. And I don't believe we had any other issues in front of the board. The next meeting is scheduled for September 3rd, I believe.
Is that
Let
next one?
me confirm. Hold on one second.
And I just wonder if we have any agenda items as it stands now for that meeting.
Hold on one moment, please.
Sure.
So for the September 3rd and September 17th, there's nothing scheduled at this time. But I understand there's a meeting in between there. Hold on one moment.
if nothing comes forth for the September 3rd meeting within the time necessary, that meeting will likely not occur. But we have those time cutoff limits, so we can't take that off our schedules right at this point, I believe.
The next meeting is August 20th.
There's an August
Yeah,
20th.
That's tonight.
That's where we are. We're here.
Oh,
now.
I'm
We're here
sorry.
now.
I'm
We
sorry.
got that box checked. Yep. Okay. Well, thank you for confirming that, but check your emails, planning board members, with regard to the status of the September 3rd meeting. As it is right now, there's nothing on the agenda for that. Thank you, Carolyn, for attending, and members for doing so. Do I hear a second of a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, alphabetical roll call vote, please.
Clark Brewer, aye.
Amy Glassmeyer, aye.
Kevin Heine, aye.
Birgit Schmidt, aye.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Good night.
Carolyn.